Hi, dear listeners and viewers. How are you? I hope you are great. After my time in Morocco, my travels carried me to Hungary, a land where the air is filled with the gentle scent of blooming flowers and the distant sound of thermal springs bubbling from the earth. Hungary, with its deep history, magnificent castles, and healing waters, held a magic all its own, an enchantment that ran deep within the land. I wandered through quiet villages surrounded by rolling hills, past ancient abbeys, and visited spas that promised not only relaxation but restoration of spirit. One day, I found myself in the town of Győr, a place steeped in both beauty and mystery. Known for its ancient thermal baths, Győr sat at the crossroads of Hungary, where the Danube and the Raba rivers converged. The locals spoke of a secret, hidden spring deep within the surrounding mountains, a spring that was said to have magical powers. It could heal the sick, grant long life, and even grant wishes. But there was also a darker side to this spring, a side that only the oldest villagers dared speak of. As I wandered through the village, I met an elderly woman named Ilona, whose weathered face held the wisdom of generations. She looked at me with eyes that seemed to see beyond the present and spoke to me with a voice like the whispering of the wind. "The springs of our land hold great power," she said, her words carrying a weight. "But not all magic is meant to be wielded. Not all wishes should be granted." Her words intrigued me, and I asked her to tell me more. It was then that she shared with me the tale of the cursed spring of Győr. Before retelling this instructive story, please subscribe to my channel and activate the bell button to be aware of other stories. I will be happy with your likes and beautiful comments. Let's go to start the story. The Cursed Spring of Győr. Long ago, during the reign of the Hungarian kings, in a time when magic still roamed freely across the land, there lived a young woman named Esther. She was the daughter of a humble fisherman who lived in a small cottage on the banks of the Danube River, just a short distance from the village of Győr. Esther was known for her radiant beauty, but it was not only her appearance that captivated those who met her, it was her heart. She was kind, humble, and full of dreams. She would sit by the river for hours, gazing out at the water, her thoughts filled with a longing for something beyond the life of simplicity that her family knew. Her father, Joseph, was a man of the earth. He loved the river and the fishing life it brought, but Esther could not share his contentment. She dreamed of adventure, of seeing the world beyond the rolling hills of Győr. She often spoke of her desire to explore distant lands, to meet people of all races, to witness wonders beyond her imagination. But her father always told her, "Stay close to home, Esther. The world is full of dangers. Our life here is enough." But Esther could not ignore the stirring in her heart. And one fateful spring evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains and the air turned cool with the promise of night, she decided to venture beyond the familiar banks of the Danube. It was on this evening, under the watchful eyes of the stars, that she met him. He appeared suddenly, almost as though he had risen from the very shadows of the river. A tall man, dark-haired and with piercing eyes that glimmered like gold, he stood before her as though he had been waiting. His name was Károly, a traveler from distant lands. His features were strikingly handsome, but it was his aura that caught Esther's attention, a strange mix of sadness and power that seemed to radiate from him like the warmth of the sun, even in the cool night air. "Good evening," Esther greeted him, startled by his sudden appearance but curious nonetheless. "Are you lost?" Carolee's smile was warm but melancholic. "Not lost, but perhaps searching." He spoke with an accent unfamiliar to Esther, but his words were smooth, carrying a depth that made her feel as if she had known him for much longer than she had. They spoke for hours that evening, under the canopy of stars, as the Danube River whispered its eternal song. Esther learned that Carolee had traveled across many lands, and his adventures seemed endless. He spoke of distant kingdoms, of strange customs, of wonders beyond imagination. Yet, there was a sadness in his voice, a longing that Esther could not quite place. By the end of the night, Esther felt an inexplicable connection to him. It was as though fate had brought them together, and for the first time, she felt she was no longer alone in her longing. Over the following weeks, Esther and Carolee spent more and more time together. They would meet by the riverbank, where Carolee would regale her with stories of his travels, his voice filled with both wonder and sorrow. As the days passed, Esther began to fall deeply in love with him. But there was something about him that perplexed her. Though he seemed to age like any other man, there was an undeniable sense of timelessness to him. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, casting the sky in a palette of oranges and purples, Carolee took Esther's hand in his. "There is something I must tell you," he said, his voice low and heavy with a secret he had kept for many years. Esther's heart raced as she looked into his eyes. She had come to care for him deeply, and now she feared what his secret might be. "I am not like other men, Esther," Carolee continued. "I am bound to this land by an ancient curse. Many, many years ago, I was a noble knight, brave and loyal to my king. But my king betrayed me, and in my despair, I wandered the mountains. There, I met a sorceress who offered me a choice: eternal life or eternal love. Foolishly, I chose life, not understanding that the price would be my soul." Esther listened in stunned silence as Carolee explained that he was bound to the earth by the curse of immortality. He could never die, but he could never truly live, for his soul was trapped in a state of eternal longing. The pain of never finding love had tormented him for centuries, until he met Esther, whose love for him had awakened a hope he had thought lost. Esther was moved by his story, and her love for him only deepened. She knew she could not let him remain trapped in this fate. She sought out the village sorceress, a wise woman who was said to possess knowledge of the ancient magics of the land. The sorceress told her that to break the curse, a tear of true love must be shed in the waters of a sacred spring deep in the mountains. The spring was known as the Cursed Spring of Gyr, and it was said to hold the power to release souls trapped by curses, but only if the tear came from a heart pure enough to break the spell. Esther, without hesitation, set out on the long journey to the spring, determined to free Carolee from his torment. She walked for days through dense forests and over craggy hills, guided by an inner voice that seemed to whisper through the winds. Finally, she reached the spring, a crystal-clear pool nestled between towering cliffs. The air around it hummed with ancient magic, and as she knelt by the water's edge, her heart swelled with both love and sorrow. Esther wept into the waters, her tears mingling with the magic of the spring. The moment the first tear fell, the air grew thick with power, and the water began to glow with a strange, otherworldly light. But as she continued to weep, something went wrong. The spring began to churn violently, and a dark mist rose from the depths, swirling around Esther's body. Her heart raced as she realized that the magic had turned against her. She had been told the tear would break the curse, but she had not known the full cost. The magic of the spring demanded balance. If one soul was to be freed, another would have to pay the price. As the mist enveloped her, Esther felt her life force begin to drain away. She cried out for Carolee, but there was no way to reach him now. The power of the spring was too great, and she was caught in its pull. In her final moments, she understood that her love for Carolee, while true, had come with a sacrifice she had not foreseen. When Carolee arrived at the spring, it was too late. Esther was gone, her body lying motionless beside the now calm waters. The spring, once a place of hope, had become a place of sorrow. Carolee's curse had been lifted, but at a cost he could never repay. The village of Gyr, once known for its healing waters, became a place of mourning. The waters of the cursed spring, now tainted by Esther's sacrifice, no longer held magic. They had become a symbol of the price of eternal love, a price that no one, not even the gods, could avoid. Sometimes, the price of love and sacrifice is more than we can bear, and even the most magical of places can become cursed when the cost of our desires outweighs the power of our hearts. Take care until the next stories. Be in the shelter of wisdom.